Sometimes you come across something on the internet that just makes you question reality and wonder if this is really just all some sort of simulation. And sometimes those things that you come across the internet live rent free in your head for unrealistic and insane amounts of time. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a story where one man submerged 47 rounds of Federal HSTs into urine in order to test whether or not they would succumb to sweat. His determination was that Federal HSTs failed the piss test. Let's talk about that, but before we do, I do want to mention a sponsor of today's video is the USCCA. The USCCA is who I trust and who many others trust when it comes to who you want there before, during, and after any sort of situation where you have to use your gun. They have a whole lot of great training information online, a lot of great resources when it comes to discussing and understanding some laws about where you can, what you should do when it comes to carrying a firearm. And they'll be the ones there for you if you have to, unfortunately, find yourself in a position where you have to use it. I'm very thankful to have USCCA on my back. I've discussed in the past why they're the only choice that I can personally make, but I want you to go down in the link in the description and check it out. Maybe it is the right decision for you. So this is a Reddit thread that is going to discuss some concepts that are a little crazy, but then I also want to have a discussion about how often I carry out or cycle out my carry ammo in my specific guns. Now, typically, the short of it is this. Whenever I think about this Reddit post, it makes me consider going out and firing the rounds that are in my carry mags. But I want to I'm going to lay a little photo over here with the title and the description. The title and the description was, Why I Don't Carry HSTs Anymore. 11 out of 47 rounds failed the piss test. Now you might be asking yourself, well, what the hell is the piss test? And today we're going to be discussing this. This was posted over a year ago, and this user named PSINEUR. Is it like a pissaneur, like a connoisseur, but a pissaneur? I don't know. When I just started carrying, I researched ammo and guns and decided on a Glock 19 and Hydra-Shocks. Not a terrible choice in either direction. Pretty standard, run-of-the-mill, just good recommendations. Then I learned about HST being upgraded to Hydra-Shock, so I switched. Then I carried HSTs for a few months and decided to shoot my old carry ammo during regular full maintenance and ammo upgrade in practice for a USPSA match. This is actually kind of similar to how I would do it. Typically, what I would do is every few months, I would cycle out the ammo in my carry gun, shoot all the rounds out of it, and then I would load up my normal target ammo that I would use at a match, because then after that, I would then be able to get a little bit more practice. Sometimes I would do it before, sometimes I would do it after the match. It just kind of depended on what I was feeling that day. But I like to at least get some practice with ammo that is loaded a lot hotter than your typical training or practice ammo you're going to use at the range. Now, to my surprise, I've noticed incredible difference in recoil in a few rounds, bad enough to get worried about a squib. Being an autist that I am, I wanted to test the assumption that this was due to old ammo being subjected to sweat and thus corrosion. I've noticed and looked at some defensive jacketed hollow points in store and noticed that Critical Duty had red paint around the primer. So I bought some HST, Critical Duty, pissed in a bottle, and left them there marinating for a few days. Yeah, you heard that right. He bought some HSTs and some Hornady Critical Duties, pissed in a bottle, and put it in there for a few days as his test. Now, the Critical Duty shot okay after that, no recoil difference. The HSTs had failure to fire. Then he switched to a different gun in .40 for USPSA and carry. For those rounds, he went with Golden Saber Black Belt. Those passed the piss test as well. Now, the funny thing is, I actually saw this post when it was initially posted, and so someone said, they quoted, "So I bought some HSTs in Critical Duty, pissed in a bottle, and left them there marinating for a few days." And their response was, "As one does." And I said, "I remember my first piss test like it was yesterday." Now, this is a pretty interesting concept because it seems kind of crazy. It's a lot of shock factor, but some of the comments in this thread were actually pretty, they were onto something. It truly was idiot science and idiot magic at work here. And it's one of those things that, it's amazing that the internet is basically free. You pay for the internet and you have all of this extra entertainment included. Now, urine and piss, they're both made in the kidneys, was their argument, and that they're both full of salt and other stuff. Now, Me personally, I don't sweat a whole lot, but I could imagine someone that does sweat an exorbitant amount. Maybe if you're going on very, very long runs or bike rides while carrying a gun without an undershirt and just sweating all over, or maybe you're wearing a tracksuit trying to cut weight for a weightlifting event, or maybe for a wrestling event or something like that, and you decide, yeah, I'm gonna put my gun in my tracksuit and get it all sweaty. I could maybe see the concept there, but peeing in a bottle is kind of like taking it to the whole next level. But this is an interesting thought thing, a little thought experiment, because I've carried Federal HSTs and various other rounds for a while, and a lot of them on the primer have little sealants. And now I've noticed with some batches of HSTs that I've been purchasing recently, they have all had a sealant on the primer, and some of them had a sealant around the actual where the bullet and the case meet. But it's an interesting concept. Now, me personally, I tend to try to inspect my gun at least once a month. I try to at least take it apart, take a look inside of it. I'm gonna be honest, I should probably do that more often, but I work from home and I don't leave the house a whole lot. So for me, it's not as much of a concern. And if you're carrying a gun all day, every day, you get exposed to lint and moisture much more often. And for that, it might make it more reasonable to swap out your carry ammo more often, or be more concerned about sweat when it comes in contact with your gun and with your ammunition. So for me, my practice was, what I did and what I would recommend most people do, is try to shoot your ammo at least every 6 months. And I think that's very realistic. So let's say you carry something full size or mid size like a Glock 19, and you have 2 mags that each hold 15 rounds. That's 30 rounds, meaning if you're buying a box of 25, that's a box plus 5 rounds that you're shooting every 6 months. Now, if you buy 4 boxes a year, that would be plenty of ammunition to carry on you, shoot it every 6 months. I think that is much more realistic. So if you're asking me, how often should I shoot my carry ammo? I think a realistic expectation for many average people, if you're carrying often and not so crazy sweaty, I think 6 months would be a good time frame. Now, if you carry a smaller gun and don't carry a spare mag with you every day, that would be much more doable. You could probably get away with buying just a few boxes, but I think that you should be shooting at least some of your carry ammo. Now, I watched a recent video with Garantham where he discussed that he actually carries 124 grain NATO spec 9mm ball ammunition. I disagree with that personally. I wouldn't do that, but for him, his reasoning was sound. He shoots a ridiculous amount of one type of ammunition, which is 9mm NATO spec 124 grain out of a variety of different handguns. So it might make sense for him, since he's shooting so much of that one specific ammo that is loaded fairly hot, that it would make sense for him to carry that. Personally, I wouldn't do that because 9mm hollow points aren't that crazy expensive. You're definitely not shooting them all day, every day, but I don't really see that big of a difference in performance when it comes to shooting my carry ammo. I don't feel like I've been practicing with training wheels and then trying to ride a motorcycle after. It doesn't really feel that crazy different for me. So you have people on the internet that are subjecting their firearms to piss tests. I don't really think that's very realistic, but it does bring up the concern of cycling out your carry ammunition. If you are noticing weird discoloration over time, I would recommend cycling it out. If you are constantly unloading and loading your firearm by taking a round out of it, you need to be paying attention to bullet setback. That's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand. If you're cycling that same top round and putting it back in the magazine every single time, or the same 2 if you carry a +1 where you take it out, I'll just show you. So loaded gun with a round in the chamber. Let's say I was unloading, I would take the magazine out. Just gonna drop that. So you then have that round of ammunition, and then you set it aside, whatever you do. Now, next day, let's say you load up your gun, unloaded gun, put a magazine in, cycle it out, set the gun down. This was, Jesus Christ, Reno, get it together. This was the original round that was in the chamber. You then put that at the top. If I were to do that again, it would just be those same 2 rounds cycling. So it's something to keep in mind. Are those rounds getting shorter over time? That is a concern. If bullet setback gets too much, it can cause differences in pressure, which you don't want to happen. It can potentially be dangerous to you if your round gets set too far back and the pressures inside the case get too high. So it's something to consider. I'm curious what you guys think about this. This is a pretty crazy situation that I've had this in my notes of something that I wanted to talk about for a while, but I decided, hey, this thing is living rent-free in my head. I need to get this out of my system. So I'll have a link to that down below. Thank you to USCCA for sponsoring this video. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.